Welcome, golfers, to the next episode of the Read It, Roll It, Hole It podcast. Today, we've got another American friend on the call, Trillium Rose. Welcome.
Thanks. Glad to be here. I'm excited to have a good conversation with you and get to know some of your audience members, hopefully.
Absolutely, yeah. Really looking forward to getting to know you. You've just been voted in the top 50 best teachers in America. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. It's a big honor, and I was
exciting.
I'm very surprised to get that news, but it feels pretty good. There's six women, six of us.
Brilliant. Oh, that's a great achievement. You know, it's a big old place, America, US and A. So,
it is.
Yeah.
It is. And I think there are a lot of people that were not on it that are really deserving. So I don't want to give the impression that the top 50 are the only best 50. But I do think the 50 that are on it have tended to be pretty vocal and visible and out there on kind of on the social channels and on the conference and summit circuit. So again, not to say that if they're not good, but I think we're in a different age than we were 10 years ago or 15 years ago, where if you were good and you were, on your lesson tee or coaching, no one really saw that. But now you can really put all that out there. I mean, here we are having a conversation, and I'm going to maybe talking about a lot of stuff, and that's one other dimension, podcasting that now people can access, ways to get better golf. So, I mean, I think we're in a really cool time.
Absolutely. I think one thing that's really cool to share with the listeners is how today's call has started before we press record, and how you started teaching me to get the camera in the right place. So I've got some nice flowers because the camera angle wasn't quite right. And, you've been giving me social media advice already, so I'm loving it.
I was just thinking as we're talking, I should be doing Instagram live right now so that it can be live on Instagram.
Let's do it. Press go.
Okay, let me, I wonder if well, you're not live right now, but this will be available on Instagram at some point. Are you on? Okay. Here we go.
Cut this bit out. Well, no, maybe not cut it out. It's a bit more. You're not inviting me on there, are you?
Okay. Oh, you don't have to go, but I should tell my listeners right now that I'm going to be on an Instagram live.
I think you should.
Yep. Okay. Hey, everybody. So I'm just starting a podcast on Ollie. What's the name of your podcast? See It, Roll It, Hole It.
Close. Yeah, it's the Read It, Roll It, Hole It podcast.
Read It, Roll It, Hole It podcast. I'm live on a podcast, so I'm just gonna roll Instagram. You guys want to hang out and watch? You can. So hey.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Excellent. So Trillium, let's start. I want to know more about you. Tell me your story, your journey. Where have you come from and where are you going? I
feel like most people that play golf or even are in the golf profession, I started young, and I had a family member teach me, in my case, which was my dad. And I didn't think I'd be a golf pro. I honestly just liked it. I played in tournaments when I was little. And it wasn't until after college, I decided to get a little more serious about it. And then that's when I kind of fell backwards into the role of a professional coach. I loved sports growing up, and I played a lot of sports. I played high school lacrosse because there wasn't a golf team. I loved it so much. I ended up playing in college. I played on the U.S. All-Star lacrosse team, and I played on Southern California's national lacrosse team all 4 years. And I don't know. I just love points. I love points, and I love goals, and I love moving. So, and I played ice hockey. So, it's something that, like most people, I love competition, and I think I do much better with competition. And I love the feeling of pressure. So after college, there was kind of a crossroads for me, a personal crossroads. And I was on the track to being a producer, if we're going to be really honest. Like, it was not in sports at all. It was in the movie business. and kind of went to college in Los Angeles. And I thought that was my track. I was living in New York City. I was working a few different jobs, including Saturday Night Live, and went home, played golf. My dad had just had a stroke. I went home for a wedding, and the head pro at the course where I grew up was like, "Hey, Trill, why don't you be my assistant?" My assistant just left. And I thought, what do you mean you're assistant in golf? What does that mean? I don't know what that means. And he said, yeah, you can just, whatever, I'll just show up. So that's how I got started. And it turns out I really loved it. I learned how to teach. And then, the winter came. I said, what do golf pros do in the winter? And he said, they go to Florida. I thought, okay, can you help me figure that out? So I got a job in Florida, and that's how it started. I kind of figured out who I wanted to work for and what I wanted to learn and what I needed to do, where my blind spots were. And that kind of took off, and it took off fast and furiously. And then that was like 10 years of just straight working for different people, north, south. I went to New York and then Florida, New York and Florida. Jim McClain was in there. I worked for him for 5 years. And then after kind of 10 hardcore sprint years, I decided to go back to grad school and got a master's degree in motor learning. And that was like a real pivotal point for me, because it changed a lot of kind of like my concepts of how people get better. And then that, I think of it as like pre and then post master's degree. And then since then, that's been almost 10 years ago. So now I'm really a full-time coach now at one place and doing other stuff. So is that a good answer?
I love it. Absolutely. Yeah, really good. Thank you. So a couple of points of things that just sort of popped in my head from what you've just said. First thing was that you said you love pressure. Can you expand on that for us?
I do love pressure. I like pressure, especially in sports, because there's not usually no one's going to die if it doesn't work out. But I probably like pressure also. And when I'm driving, I even like to drive fast. It's hard for me to explain why I like pressure. I just do. I feel like if somebody, like I've always been this way, if somebody's running near me, on a treadmill, I tend to like that because I have someone to compete with. I used to run half marathons, and I would sign up in like the slow heat so I could then pass people. It is no disrespect. I'm not trying to disrespect anyone who's slow. It's just, I kind of like the feeling of beating people. I don't know. I also like the challenge of it. So I think that's been really helpful to my own mental game, because I think if I hit a bad shot, the next shot is that much more important and that much more exciting, especially if I'm in a crappy lie. Like my thought is, okay, that sucked, that now I'm like in the weeds on the left, but what can I do next? Let's see what happens next. And that's, I get jazzed off that.
You're just competitive as hell is what you're saying. You're just competitive. I love it. Jim McClain, like legend in our industry, what were the biggest things you learned from him over the years?
Jim McClain was such a big influence for me in the beginning when I started teaching. I really didn't have any experience as a teacher, and I had nothing to go off of other than what I knew how to do and what I knew as an athlete. And that doesn't cut it as a coach. You can't teach people what you do. You can't expect that to work because everybody's so different and everybody's got such different, obviously people are different, right? And especially as a resident coach of a golf club, you're going to get someone who's 8, you get someone who's 98, you're going to get someone who's been playing for 20 years, someone who's playing for 0. So you have to be able to adapt and manage and make that work for everybody. So anyway, Jim McClain was brilliant in his thought he still is in his thought process that, hey, let's not teach one way, obviously, but we need to have some kind of method and like an order or a system to how we're going to get this going. In other words, you've got 20 people on staff and we have people coming for golf schools. How are you going to coach everybody so all the coaches are on the same page, but you're not locking them into one swing? Well, he started by looking at what the best players in the world are doing, and then making some comparisons and contrasts. Like, what does every single player do on tour? What do they all do? And there are a lot of things that they do differently. So if the face is looking like this, if the wrist is angled here or this, like maybe there's not one way where your wrist needs to be at the top. If someone's across the line, someone's laid off. But functionally, if someone's really across the line and they've been across the line for a long time, then what happens? And then how do you manage that? So I think the training from Jim McLean was really to think critically, look critically at what they're doing, figure out what those fundamentals are. Like hitting the center of the face is a fundamental. The backswing arc is wider than the downswing arc. There is a little lateral motion. The sequencing of the body segments. So you combine the biomechanics with physics, with then some evidence of what players are doing, and you kind of come up with a pretty good sense of where you might want to work with somebody.
Brilliant. And then how did the motor learning degree evolve your coaching from what you knew at the time to today?
Well, I think when I went back for a master's degree in motor learning, the reason was I had so much heavy at that point background in the mechanics and the biomechanics and the like what to do in a swing, that how to do it needed a little bit more education. And I just had some questions that I really needed answering. So how do you take knowing what you want to do and then turn it into a productive practice session? Is it better to do things in real slow motion and get it right? Or is it better to do it quickly so you get the feeling of the pressure and the timing? Is it better to break it into segments, or is it better to do it in a big chunk? Is it better to practice hardcore for 3 straight hours, or is it better to do like intermittent bursts of 30 minutes and wait an hour? And so I knew that there was a ton of scientific research on this, like peer-reviewed research in skill acquisition. And it was like neurophysiology, really, if we're going to call it the right thing, and then psychology. In the 70s, they were kind of doing a lot of work and starting to ask the same questions. And so when the neurophysiology and psychology started to overlap, someone had a bright idea to just call it motor learning. So that's the advent of the kind of the discipline of that. It was a lot more than I needed, to be honest, as a golf coach. It was like, I don't know what's that concept, killing a fly with like a missile. It sort of felt like that. Okay. But I think I answered a lot of questions I had, and I had so much practical experience that I felt like I was working upstream. Like I had a lot of experience and I had a lot of theories, but I wasn't sure so it's kind of going backwards, going from practical application to the lab, where most people would go from the lab to practical application. So I was kind of doing it the opposite way, but it was fun. And I still feel like I have a lot to say and a lot to offer on that.
That's good. And a lot to learn, I guess.
And a lot to learn. I always have a lot to learn. Everyone, I think, should feel that.
Don't we all? Yeah. So on the learning a new skill, doing it slowly or doing it fast, which one is right?
Well, when you're learning a new skill for the very first time, I guess it depends. We should start with what the skill is and how complex it is and how hard it is to manage the new movement, because there are a whole bunch of factors that go into it, factors and variables. But generally speaking, if you can do a motion slowly, you can then put the motion into place in the timing that you want. So slowly is good, and chunking it is good. In other words, taking just a piece and getting that right. So for example, if you're having trouble staying steady with your lower body and you're making putting strokes, eliminate something that's complicating it, like the putter or maybe the ball, and make the motion without moving the putter at all. Okay. You see what I'm saying? So sure. you want to back into something so that it's as simple as possible. And then you can add complexity, and complexity also means maybe speed.
Yeah. Okay. No, I like that. That's good. Okay. So let's talk about COVID. We're in a time of the last 18 months of a 2 years of a sort of bit of a crazy world, and we've been in and out of work, if you like, from doing perhaps online to face to face. What I want to know is, what's the biggest things that you've learned from you as an individual and as a coach over that period?
Over the period of the lockdown, what have I learned? Is that the topic?
That's the topic. What have you learned? What have you learned about yourself that you can apply to your coaching to get better, or for your students to get better?
The lockdown for me was actually and taking the horrors of the situation and the out of it, and just answering from a personal standpoint, and I should say a personal professional standpoint. The lockdown, it kind of like the treadmill stopped for me, so I was able to kind of hit reset and think about how I could do better, just in general, and what I might want to be doing with my time and expertise. And I had spent a lot of work working with other coaches in seminars and conferences, and I was on the PGA. I chaired the player development committee, and we did a ton of stuff for our industry and other PGA professionals. And I was on a committee for the LPGA, and I was doing things that I think are really important, but I hadn't done very much that was outward facing for the average golfer. I've been doing a little Instagram, and that definitely takes over. So I thought, let me try to do something like a curriculum for called The First Step, which was a series of videos that are less than 10 minutes each, but essentially geared towards somebody that might want to start playing golf for the first time, but didn't have any reference points or anybody who could help them get going. Like I had my dad, or most people had somebody or a spouse. So I thought, I have a lot of beginners that come to me, and I'm expensive by the hour, but what if they could show up and they had something ready? And I'm not the first person ever to do this. I know, me and my golf, and I love those guys. They've got great programs, and Eric Corgono, he's got good there's a lot of programs that are out there. I just decided to do one little capsule and see it. And I thought, you know what? There could be more of this. So that was one answer. That was one actual physical thing. The other thing I think was how much people really need to be outside and be challenged and do something that's outside of their lane. And golf is an unbelievable outlet for that. I think a very healthy outlet, especially if you're walking, or if you're carrying a bag, or if you're doing a push cart. Learning something new at an older age is hard, but that challenge for your brain is something that should not be underestimated. You've got new neurons all the time forming in your brain, and it's use it or lose it. And the more you can be challenged and solve problems and put things together that are hard and stick in a hard place and move through it, that's great for your brain, especially when it's an exercise involved action. So those are kind of my two big things. Nice.
That's good. And did you get a lot of chance to play with your daughter?
Oh yeah, it was great family time. That of course, personally was really great.
I absolutely loved the lockdown. No, like you were sort of hesitating to say that earlier, maybe, or something similar, because I think you probably shouldn't say, but yeah, spending that quality time with the family and the kids were awesome. How old's your daughter?
Yeah, our daughter's 4.
What month? My daughter's 4.
Mid-August.
August, there we go. Esme's July, so they're the same age, man.
Yeah, same age.
What were you doing in lockdown with her? What kind of activities?
Lots of stuff. She's writing now, so we're doing a lot of writing and reading. She reads tons of books. We do lots of things that require lots of concentration. And I can't believe this is true, but so far, she's 4. She's never watched a TV show or movie at home. No screens, no iPad, no phone.
Wow, that's like, I've got to give you a big clap for that. Wow, how did you do
have
that?
No screens. But we we both kind of look at each other like, should we give her a Disney movie? And they're like, well, if she's not asking for it now, let's just see how long we could go. And we've been on long airplane rides and we've never given her a screen. And we're like, let's just keep it rolling.
That's impressive stuff. That is impressive.
Well, I think we got lucky. And we only have one. You know, I think if you have two, it's probably a different game.
Yeah, it's a game changer. It's good though. They're the best thing ever, aren't they, kids? What does she just play golf?
She's starting to swing now, and she's got a little older friend who's super into it. So if we bring her out with her friend, she's more apt to try hard.
Nice. Good stuff. Good stuff.
What's the name of your podcast again?
Read It, Roll It, Hold It podcast.
Read It, Roll It, Hold It. Okay, so I just want to say hi to you guys on Instagram Live. I'm on a podcast right now. Read It, Hold It.
Roll It, Hold It.
Read It, Roll It, Hold It.
You got it.
Yep. And Ollie, do you have an Instagram account I can send people to you?
Yeah, Putting Hub.
Putting Hub. I'm online with Putting Hub right now. His name is Ollie. I'm on his podcast. So I just figured I'd just let you guys in on it. Hello. I see someone. Hello from Scotland. Hi.
I've just joined it.
What's that?
I've just joined your, that's weird. You look really different on this one compared to this one. But I've got two of you now. How do I join it? Did that work?
Let me see. Hold down. Yeah, view request. So wait a second. If I go live with you,
will that go? Will that mess up the podcast?
Let's try.
We'll try it. Okay, so we'll move on to. Oh no!
There's an echo.
That ain't working, is it? I'll leave. It definitely didn't work. I'm leaving. Okay. We'll get back to the podcast. So back earlier in the year, I saw on your Instagram that you spent the day with Scotty Cameron and Brad Faxon. Look, I'm a putting nerd. Brad Faxon, Scotty Cameron, like that's up there. Tell me about that experience and what you've learned from these guys. Yeah, tell me everything you know. The whole day, I want to know from start to finish.
Okay, so I rolled in the parking lot.
Yeah.
I will say that Scotty rolled in right after us and he drives a nice car.
He does like his cars, doesn't he? I think he's obsessed
nice
with
car and he likes his luxury. He carries he probably has many, but he had a spiffy new Louis Vuitton backpack and nice watch and nice shoes. And the guy knows he likes luxury, and it's obvious in the way he pays attention to his craftsmanship and the products that he puts out and the quantity of products he puts out. But that's not to say that that's what it's all about. It's all about the function and it working. I think it's just sort of a side gig that it happens to be. He loves, custom stuff. Mm-hmm. So his studio is pretty cool. It's got the craft area, his workshop, which is, metal and sparks and machines and dark and greasy. And then the studio where you're actually putting and rolling a ball. So Faxon's really good. He's the real deal. I mean, I've watched him pull so many putts and just kind of casually putt with we were looking at the Phantom. So the Phantom series was coming out, and so was the Special Select. So he gave us a kind of a real storyline behind each putter and what he had done to do to get there and what he was interested in. I can't even remember all the stuff he said, but he's so attentive to everything. I think and by the way, watching Brad Faxon hold shots with a mallet. Yeah. That's not his putter.
No. Not
even close to his putter. He has.
Is he good with any club? I bet he could just putt with anything that ball.
Yeah. That's the surprising thing. So I think he had an 8.5, which is a big spaceship. And it didn't seem to be a big deal. Now the 0.5 has a bit of like a little flow for a mallet. And so that seemed to, I liked it. I've always played a blade, like mostly a 2.5 Newport or, some version of that.
Sure.
And I kind of like the 8.5 too, but not, so what was interesting to me, I was listening to Brad and Scotty talk about their relationship over the years. And Brad had a lot of, Brad's a real thoughtful person. He's a really bright person. And he is a learner, like a lifelong learner. And he's put a lot of work into just trying to learn about what makes things work. Common denominators of all great putters, including him, would be the shaft returns back to neutral. I thought that was really kind of an interesting concept. And all these variables that we as coaches look for with players, they're the same kind of variables that Scotty and his team look for. For instance, what kind of side bend does somebody tend to have, and how's that going to affect their stroke? Body angles in general. We could talk forever about body angles. We could talk forever about grip and about what someone sees and how they see it, with their right eye or the left eye, or when they're seeing it. And so he's just so tuned into all those details that being in the studio and being able to measure, and you're like basically a quintech and measuring all these factors, then you can kind of go work back and say, okay, you did well with this. This is what happened when you did that. And it's like a straight MRI for your putting stroke. It's really, really cool.
Brilliant. No, that's good. Just going back to Scotty, isn't his latest model based off a sports car, if I'm all right in saying that?
You probably know more than I do. Is that right?
What the black and yellow range, I am pretty sure, is based off him going to car shows because he's a big car geek. And he apparently liked the shape of the car. I don't know. I think it was like a Lamborghini, but anyway.
I want to say Lamborghini too.
Right. What car did he have? Did he have a Lamborghini?
No, I think it's a Bentley, like a blacked out, like a really sweet.
Did it look like his putter?
Yeah, he said he calls it murdered out, and when you black it, everything's black.
Okay. There we go. Good, excellent. Well, the putters are just beautifully made, aren't they, Scotty Cameron? Big fan of them, and it's nice to have that story behind them. It's
so nice. And I was just telling a friend of mine before I got on this podcast, I want to go back to the studio, and I have 6 Scotties, and I just want to go back with all of them, and I want to just find out what is the one I should go with, because I always thought I was a great. I was like, oh, I can just putt with anything. Just send me a new putter. I'll just get a new putter and I'll be fine with it. Or, friend like, hey, you want to trade? And sure, I'll just trade. But, I think I'm more sensitive to the putter than I thought, because some putters I can do great with, and they look almost the same, but the weight is a little different, or the shaft's a little different, or the grip, so I didn't realize I'm such a, I don't know, like a princess. I thought I was just fine with anything. So one of the things I really want to do is go back with all my putters and just solve it, figure out which is the one I should stick with.
It'd be cool to have a putter fitting off the main man, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
He goes, oh, you should use my putter, this putter. That'd be pretty cool. Good. Okay. I know you've also got a relationship with the course management system, Arcos.
Yes, Arcos.
Sorry?
Arcos, yeah.
Arcos, yeah. So what I want to sort of know is, from all the students you've coached, is it over 2,000 students you've coached over the years you've put on your social?
Oh, yeah, probably more than that, because in 2021, I had 358 different students. So in total, my whole life, a lot. Okay. A lot of great people.
A lot of great people.
I am.
What I want to know then is, like, what, from the course management point of view, what is the what's the biggest things you've learned from watching amateur golfers to their biggest mistakes on the course from a strategy point of view?
I love this topic. So from a course management point of view, I've seen so many people get tied into, they should be doing something, and thinking in their head, okay, now this is the time where I hit my fairway wood and I bomb it. So I appreciate that sentiment, that you may feel like, okay, now I have to hit my sand wedge out of here because it's got to go up and roll. But there are times where you can take kind of a more simpler route and hit something that you can hit well, and just get down the fairway, right? Or just get it on the green instead of doing what you think you need to do. So I think that's kind of one thing. That's a very basic concept. I think that's for most people that are sort of earlier on in the game. Now, once somebody's gotten a little more sophisticated and it's harder to piece together where the weaknesses are, or maybe you've got some confirmation biases or even just some general biases about what you think you're good at or what you think you're bad at. This is where a stats keeping device or just stats in general are really helpful. So I'm not an ambassador to Arcos because they're just paying me to do it. By the way, no one gets really that rich with in the golf business when you're working with golf companies. It's mostly because we all love the brand and we really want to be associated with this brand because we love it and we use it. And that's the case with me. Arcos is awesome. So Arcos is basically Bluetooth to your clubs. So you screw in a little device at the end of your club and it keeps track of all your shots while you're playing. So I'm a minimalist when I play. I don't like to have a golf cart. I don't like to have lots of gadgets. I don't even really like to think too much about things, which may sound funny coming from a golf instructor. I just want to swing and hit, and I want to watch the ball and find it and hit it again. And so for Arcos, which is so great, I don't have to think about anything. It's keeping all those stats on my own. And at the end, oh my gosh, the data is incredible. Not only do you know how many times you've hit the shot, how far the shot went, but if you've gone left, right, long, short of your target, your approach shots, your proximity to the hole, your strokes gained on your different clubs based on a target handicap. I know how many putts I've hit, how many greens I've hit, how many, because those are easy stats. I'm talking about the harder stuff that you might not know. Like, I didn't realize that I hit my 6-iron so much and I don't even hit my 5-iron, or I didn't realize that my 8 and my 9 were kind of going the same distance. Like, those are things that you wouldn't even necessarily pick up unless you're really paying attention. And I think Arcos is a way that can kind of do it all for you.
Wonderful. Yes. Great. The caddy part is really pretty cool as well, isn't it?
Yeah. I've been using that too. So the caddy, the AI caddy, basically, the more you use Arcos, the more it gives you, it collects your information. It gives you some pretty good data of how far you hit your clubs, or a range. So if your 7-iron is 145 to 155, and then you're on the golf course, it might suggest your 7-iron. So that's kind of cool. So there are all kinds of reasons why it's useful to use it, because then the more you use it, the more information that you have. I think there's only one shot that it wasn't a good idea, and that's because there was a gust of wind. But other than that, I've shot some pretty low rounds only using the caddy.
Interesting. That's good. Okay, let's go on to some quick fire questions. I don't know if you're is you still on Instagram? If anyone there wants to ask any questions, but my first question comes from Irene Craigie, and
I'm talking to my people. I'm on a podcast. If anyone has a question, just put them right in the comments, and then I'll try to loop them in.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, bring them in. So Irene Craigie's got a question for you. She likes to play golf with her mates. She plays 12 holes. They have a knock. They might play a 12-hole competition. They go into the clubhouse and have a couple of pints of beers and some scones normally. what I want to know, or what she wants to know, should I say, is how does she concentrate over the ball? Because they're in between shots, they're having a chat, lots of knitter natter, and then she finds it hard to get to a ball and concentrate over that ball to hit the shot without still carrying on talking about what they were talking about. So, what's the tip? What's the advice you can give them to switch off from chat to then focus on their shot for 20 seconds to then get back to the chat?
Oh yeah, so she's trying to get serious. I'm all for having fun with your mates when you're playing, but I'm in it for the game. So I think putting something on the line is a great thing to do, and it doesn't have to be money, but it could be something like someone's got to clean my clubs. I mean, I've played with a colleague. There was this terrible visor that was in the shop. It was red sequins. The whole thing was red sequins. And so we were playing for whoever lost had to wear the visor teaching the next day. I mean, that was enough. Right? That's enough.
That stopped the chat.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, if someone's not competitive and they don't care that much, then that's okay. You don't have to care. You don't even have to keep score. But at the end of the day, if the score does matter to you, you have to figure a way to crank it. And I think that cranking it happens when you set your bag down next to your ball and you have to start thinking about what you're going to do, because you wouldn't get onto a diving board and start talking to your friends as you're jumping and you're like, okay, oh yeah, that was a great idea, and then do a flip. No, you kind of have to get composed or else you're going to get hurt.
What tips have you got to get composed?
I singular focus, ask.
Talk to me.
Maybe she's got one or two questions, like a list of questions that you can ask, like, okay, what do you want this ball to do? And then work backwards from there. If you want your ball to do that, then what does the lie look like? What are we able to do out of this lie? And then what club options do we have? And then after that, okay, then you make a couple moves to get yourself ready, whether that's called a practice swing or a little movement to get the right feeling. You got to conjure up what it is you're supposed to do, because by the way, this is a physical game. And then I like Lynn and Pia. Lynn and Pia from Vision 54 had a great process where they call it think box, play box. I call it backstage and on stage. You're backstage about to give a presentation, you can read those notes, but when you're on stage, you better be present. And you're not going to sit there and read the notes, because that's the most boring presentation ever. It's got to come from you. So if you're backstage, you can think about all the stuff you're doing, read your notes. And then when you're on stage, you just got to pull the trigger.
Let it go. Love it. Love it. I've got sort of question. I got a question. I better read it before I read it. This is from Charlie Sanderson Woods, who's a professional in London. Any tips for presentation on camera and in general? Yeah,
tons.
You've given me one as well. My camera angle's in the right angle now, rather than looking at my nose.
So the question was, do we have any tips on looking professional on camera? And now, is this for is he coaching? He's
a coach, yeah.
Making videos?
He's a coach.
I think lighting is good and sound is good. I probably start with sound. Sound is number one. Got to get really good sound. Got to figure out what you need to do, whether you need a wireless mic or you need to I think some of the ear pods had some recording capabilities, but I'd say number one is the sound. Mm-hmm. And then in terms of just the presentation, I found that get one message and hammer that one message and make your message really clear. So the message is I don't know. Let's say your
putting start line.
What's that?
Putting start line.
What good drill to help increase swing speed? I saw that. Just like so, putting. Let's say you said keeping your base angles.
Yeah, having the ability to start the ball online.
Starting the ball online. There you go. Starting the ball online. Okay. So if that's your topic, then don't get distracted with anything other than starting the ball online. So, okay, how do you start your ball online? Well, come up with that. And then pick maybe one out of the 5 things that you want to say and say, look, there are lots of ways to start the ball online, and I'll go into them in other videos. But in this one, I want you to make sure you get this done. Because if from a motor skill perspective, if you've got, I call it, if you're chasing 2 rabbits, your brain is thinking of 2 things, you're going to catch neither. You're not going to be able to really absorb either one, or you're not going to know whether you've done it or not. Sometimes you can have 2 thoughts. I mean, sometimes you can do it. Sometimes you can work them in order. Like, all right, my posture is good. Okay, I'm going to make a full backswing, and then I'm going to feel like my hips initiate. Like, okay, so you can do those 3 things. But generally, if you're trying to learn something or do something differently, you need like a blank slate, and then one thing. You have your plan. You do it. You think about how well you executed that plan. If you did well, great. If you did not do well, you do it again.
Brilliant. That's good. Hopefully that'll help Charlie. He's got another good question here as well. And you've got a question about swing speed for putting.
Yeah. Okay.
So the question is from Charlie. How has she found being a female and conquering a male dominant sport? Woof.
Really, that's such a compliment. You said conquering, because I don't know that I've conquered anything, but I appreciate that's a big compliment. How does it feel to be a female? It just is what it is. I think in the beginning, I always thought, well, it would have been really nice to have a female mentor when I was little. You know, a female teacher would have been great. And I didn't have any of that. I think that was a real motivating element to me wanting to be a teacher, because I wanted to be someone that I never had. Do I think that I have a lot of different things to offer as a female? Not necessarily. I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty similar to what the rest of the guys do. I always wanted to be a good teacher first that happened to be female. I didn't want to be, oh, she's a great female teacher. I want to be a great teacher. I happen to be female. I will say I do get nervous still when I walk into rooms and they're all men. I get a little anxious before, when I'm getting ready. I get a little anxious when I show up. I get a little, it's kind of scary, even though I might know everybody. I'm sure that you guys would feel the same way if you walk into a room and it's all women. And you're like, okay, I'm the dude. I'm the dude. So I don't know. Cool. Thank you.
That's good. What were your live on Instagram? What's the verdict?
I have a tendency to pull putts. What do you recommend to remedy that? Ollie, Mr. Putting Guy, I'd love to hear what you have to say. I have a few things. Another one was, which teacher or instructors do you admire the most? I'll
go for the putting one.
Yeah.
I think your listener needs to, if they're right-handed, then if the club face is closed, the ball will go left. So it's missing left. So I'd try to figure out where that club face is closing. So is it closed at address? Is it closing in the backswing, or is it closing in the downswing? And then maybe from there, start to look at posture and body parts.
Yeah.
So what body part is causing that club to move in that way?
So I love that. I love that answer. I wouldn't have answered that way. I love that. So your answer of if someone's pulling putts is, you're basically saying it's the concept of pulling it may not be you actually swing direction left. It's probably more apt to be the face, because the face has way more influence of the ball. Is that what you're saying?
95%.
Yeah. So you're saying time out. Let's even restructure that concept into realizing that it's your face, and where in the stroke is that face shutting down. I think that's great. And if you're not having any luck during the stroke where the face is, then let's look at what your body angles are doing and what's happening in your body, which may be influencing that pull.
Beautiful. I've got Essie, come here. We've got a guest, special guest. Say hello to Trillium Rose. That's a very loud hello.
Hi, Esme.
Anyway, okay. So was there another question there you wanted to answer or ask?
Yeah, I guess. Hi, everybody on my Instagram live. I'm on a podcast, as you can probably see. How do you develop your pre-shot routine? I love all these questions. And then another one is, what teachers, instructors do you admire the most? So I'll answer both of those. Teachers and instructors I admire the most. I admire so many, and I listen to so many, and I have so many questions. And even those that I may not teach the same way or might have different disagreements with, I still think that there is a huge value to having all these different voices. So there's I love John Jacobs and his Practical Golf. That's, I would say, a classic. I really love Jim McLean. Having spent so much time with him personally, he knows how to get it done with average people and with pros. Dr. Rob Neal, is a biomechanist who not many people have heard of. And he's probably most likely my most, the highest, that he has influenced me the most when it comes to mechanics of the swing.
Really cool. Just sorry, button in. He was the guest of the show last week.
Fantastic. So, yeah, he's fantastic. He's a great friend. His wife is a great friend. He's a brilliant operator and a scientist, and I admire him tremendously. Without him, I think I would not be as good as a teacher. That's for sure. But anyway, there's a lot out there that I think are great. And in terms of speed, I like the super speed sticks. I know Sasha McKenzie's been doing some cool stuff with Stack System. The speed sticks, super speed sticks, are really easy, and they're easy to get, easy to do. The hard part is actually doing the work. You have to do the freaking work. So if they're sitting in your bag, you're not going to get the work done. But I'm big into the super speed sticks. And the deal is with speed is you just have to do it. You have to push yourself past your comfort zone, and you've got to do it enough in a way that's going to be built time after time. In other words, 3 times a week, 6 to 8 weeks, and you've got to do all 3. So speed is possible, but you just have to put the work in, like anything.
Real interesting one, the speed, isn't it? One of my clients was swinging his driver the other day at 87 mile an hour, and we started to focus on that number.
Yeah.
And I just sort of out of the blue said, right, you're not going home until we get that over 100. And he was like, 100?
Did he?
10 minutes later, he got to 101.
Are you kidding?
And the ball wasn't necessarily going any further or any straighter, but it was like, he's quite a beginner golfer, but it was just interesting that he had that in the locker, but he was trying to control it, trying to swing within himself. And, he's an athletic young guy, and 100 mile an hour is more than achievable.
To your point, I don't know if my listeners has heard that. Ollie just had a student who went from 85 to 101 in one lesson. But he said he didn't quite, it's not like he hit it straighter or even farther, but he had the speed in him. And I think that's an interesting.
He did it further. When he got hold of it, it went from like 200 to 250. Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. So he still managed to find the center of the face. And I think there is value to figuring out what the move needs to do before you just go balls to the wall and as fast as you possibly can. But it's a balance, right? So if you're going to get injured by swinging fast, okay, you have to get stronger. You're not just going to sit there and wildly swing away and hurt yourself. But at the same time, if you never push yourself out of your comfort zone, how are you ever going to swing faster? So you see where there's that challenge point where you've got to find. And I think at least if you've been trying to slow it down to figure out what the move is, you've been trying to slow it down because your coach is telling you something, you can't think about 2 things at once. Speed it back up. Eventually, you got to speed that puppy back up.
Absolutely. I've got to mention that is Simon Toffs, who was the student of the month last month. So I don't want to not mention him because, he's come down from 35 handicap to 21 this year.
35 to 21. Woohoo! Good job, Simon.
He works hard. Okay, Trillium, I'm conscious of your time. Look, really enjoyed that. That's been, good fun. We've sort of interacted with your your Instagram live as we went through it, and I'm sure my listeners would have got some good nuggets from that. So really appreciate your time, and keep doing what you're doing. It's great to hear your energy and your enthusiasm, and I feel blessed to have spoken to you and to learn from you. So please continue being good at you.
Thanks, Ollie. And I hope we cross paths too, because I'd love to check out your program and your putting studio and hear more about what you're doing.
Awesome. We'll definitely do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care. Bye, everybody.